So what I'm going to do is when I'm communicating with you guys in this presentation, I would like for you to either use your voice or put it in the chat. Oh, Skylar says it's the Kraken. Kraken. um, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is have you guys share with me that simple message. What was your message going to be? If you had a message to your future self or the future of mankind, what would that message be?
I would say that in my message, I would just say, hi, you were lucky if you found this because, and then I'll include the date, and then I'll tell them like my Gmail or something, and then so they can tell like where it was found and what date it was found to see how long it is.
Gotcha. Okay, so you'd give a way to contact yourself. What if this message was found in like 100 years from now and maybe Gmail didn't even exist anymore?
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Maybe they will like give my own address. I don't know.
Okay, your own address.
Like if it's 100 years from now, they're all like tech savvy, so they could like find my address and give me a note, like something like that.
Right. Yeah, and you never know. They could find it in 5 years or 10 years or 1 year. Does anyone else want to share? What would your message be to a person in the future? Go ahead and use your voice, or you could put it in the chat.
I would say I would tell them, the future humans, about an outdated folklore story. The Kraken kind of inspired me, but what is it? I think it'd be funny to hear them, or maybe to, if I were there and if they completely forgot about the folklore story, it'd be funny.
So you'd want to tell them a folklore story about the present moment, or something that's sort of ancient?
Like an ancient one, or something from 1700.
Interesting.
We not thought about that stuff.
Do you think that would confuse them and think that story was about the time that you lived?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, whatever you capture in that moment and you send out into the future people will probably interpret it that was happening to you right now in that moment, and that's why you wrote about it. Let's see. Jocelyn says, I would put lots of folks wish for world pizza.
I accidentally put, that was supposed to be peace.
Peace, okay. I thought so, but world pizza sounds really tasty too, so why not? Peace and pizza. It's hard to fight when you're eating pizza. That is so true. Do you mean lots of folks wish for world peace? There you go.
Lots of folks wish for world peace. Not me. I wish for world pizza. It's hard to fight when you're eating pizza.
Okay, well, I think that's a really good wish. And then let's see. Zael says, LOL, all the problems are solved until some people realize that they're lactose intolerant. Oh, you guys are funny. Okay, so thank you for sharing. We're gonna go ahead and get started with our presentation. This is a little bit long, so once you take a deep breath and just put your listening ears on, maybe even take some notes, because I think it might be a good idea. If you get inspired by a story, or if I share something with you and you're like, ooh, I kind of want to put that in my piece, make note of it. Type it in your notes on your computer, jot it down on a Post-it note, something that kind of record it. Okay, and of course you can go back to this presentation. And I'm seeing some other shares, and I really appreciate your shares. If we have time at the end of class, we're gonna go back. And we have a lot of opportunities to capture these thoughts. All right. So I'm gonna close the chat just for a second so that you guys can see my full screen here. Okay, so there's a lot of students participating in this project. We're calling the show, right, the exhibition or the experience, Message in a Bottle. So we've got ceramics, digital photography, drawing 2, painting 1, 2D digital art, animation. Those are all high school classes. And then I'm involving you guys in kind of a separate sort of side middle school project. I'm turning my lights on. That's why I'm jumping up real quick here. I'm going to get my exercise for the day. Sometimes I have to do it like a swirl around and a dance to actually get them to turn on. All right. So we're calling this a visual arts experience, right? We traditionally, visual artists have exhibitions in galleries, right? But at the moment, we can't necessarily do that, or we might not be able to pack a bunch of people into an exhibition space. So whenever you have moments where you have to change what you normally do, creative people, including you guys and the visual arts department, typically find creative ways to solve this problem. And our creative way is to have a visual arts experience where we get to send our messages out into the world and into the future. So that is what we're going to be doing with this project. So it's just very exciting. I'm super excited about it. Hopefully by the end of this presentation, you guys will be too. So you can make a bottle, message in a bottle, or you can make a time capsule. And we'll talk about what those things are. Message in a bottle or time capsule. This is a time capsule from MIT. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it was discovered just recently. So a message in a bottle and a time capsule, these are vehicles of communication. Vehicles of communication. Think about that for a second. Can you think of any other vehicles of communication? And I'd like you to put them in the chat, or you can also vocalize. A pigeon, note from a pigeon, a person, a bird, a letter, COVID. I'm curious why, how COVID would be a vehicle of communication. I want to hear more about that, Serenity. Mailman, a computer. Good. Keep going. Think outside of the box a little bit. A vehicle of communication. A letter.
A phone.
A phone. A newspaper. Carving on stones. Yeah. If you think about your history classes, right? What are some of the artifacts that you learned about in your history classes that communicate? What's that, Ovia?
Clay tablets full of hieroglyphics.
Hieroglyphics, yes, and cuneiform and all of the writings on clay tablets. So why do you think that mom project is using clay tablets? Any guesses? Why do you think they're using clay as opposed to like etching on glass or metal or?
Because clay is like harder to break easily?
Yeah, clay lasts a very, very, very long time. When you fire it, it basically turns into stone. So think about how the earth has been around for a really long time, right? So clay is just kind of part of the earth. Let's go back to our chat here. Kites, that's a great one. Balloons. To keep the past in the future. Oh, interesting, Gabby. Because it's cooler and it lasts longer. Yeah. So these are all really good suggestions, ideas for vehicles of communication. All right, so a message in a bottle. So what I want you guys to decide after you do your research is, what is your vehicle? Is it going to be a bottle or is it going to be a time capsule? So a message in a bottle, this is going to be an anonymous message. So you're going to have to be able to let go of your message. You're going to create this beautiful bottle out of clay with your own hands. You're going to put some artwork on it. You're going to put a really awesome message inside. You're also going to include an Instagram hashtag, because we're hoping that the person that gets your bottle will uncover it and take a picture of themselves with the bottle and hashtag, so that we can see that it was received. So that's kind of exciting. You might be able to figure out and find who gets your message, but you might not. So you have to be able to let it go out into the world. So traditionally, MIBs, or messages in bottles, are sent out through the ocean, or like bodies of water that move, like rivers, and mostly the ocean, right? But we could do that, or we could do like a campus bottle hunt. We could make it kind of a fun all-campus activity, or community door drops. You could just randomly like drop it on someone's porch or in their yard or something. Can you guys think of other ways of getting your message, your bottle, out into the world?
We can like put it into a river and like hope like a fisherman fishing can get it.
Okay.
Like, the thing like gets dropped and then they get it out.
Yeah.
throw it somewhere random and then hope that maybe someone will find it?
Yeah, so just like a random spot. Gabby says, I'm scared they'll call the police if I dropped it on someone's door. No, they won't do that. I mean, door dropping is like part of our culture now because of COVID. So there's constantly people dropping stuff off on porches. Mailing it to a weird address. That's a good one, Alexandria.
Hide it in your house somewhere, and then like if you move, someone will find it there.
Okay, so hiding it in your house somewhere. That's kind of like a time capsule in a way.
We can like hold it like in a big like river or ocean, and like we can just turn like 3 times, and then we just throw it wherever we are, and maybe it'll go into the sun, maybe it'll go into someone's head. No, maybe it'll go into the ocean.
Yeah, it could. It literally will go anywhere, right? I just saw a video of.
And we can like close our eyes while we're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. You just won't know. So the idea here is that you have to let it go. You have to let your message go, and you're not going to know what's going to happen to it. But wouldn't that be super exciting if you start following the Instagram page and all of a sudden there's your bottle and some random person is holding it and smiling and saying, thank you for your message, right? Isn't that, I mean, this just sounds fun to me. I'm going to do one too. All right, great ideas. So I'm going to go ahead and close the chat here and we're going to continue on. So I want you to ponder these questions. This is part of your research. You do not need to physically write them out. Just ponder, which means to like think about and wonder and try to answer in your mind, right? Who would you like to receive this message, hypothetically? Who do you want to get this message? How would you like to send it? So we just talked about that. Ocean or river, through the mail, hidden treasure hunt. Do you want a student on campus to get it? Do you want a community member to get it? Do you want someone in Asia to get it? Do you want someone in maybe like the place that you grew up? Like if you grew up in India, would you want to send it off to India? Or if you grew up in Mexico, would you want to send it off to Mexico? So think about that. What would you like to say or give or create? Your bottle will be made out of clay and decorated on the inside and also the outside. So it's going to be beautiful. You're going to make this beautiful thing. And you can send a message on the actual bottle itself and a message on the inside. So there's a lot of potential for sending a message either with words or imagery. Are you okay with letting your creation go? You'll know, you will only see who receives it via the Instagram. So we talked about that. If they choose to take a picture and hashtag it, they might not do that. They might not want to go public with it. And what will your bottle look like? All right, so we're going to switch gears and think about the time capsule. The big question about the time capsule is, where are you going to bury it? So this will be a message to your future self, or potentially someone hundreds of years from now. If you forget about your bottle, or you move, or you can't dig it up, or whatever, all of a sudden it's just buried there forever until someone digs it up. Someone's building a garden or making a new house on that piece of land, and all of a sudden they dig up this beautiful box and they discover your time capsule. So let's ask these questions. What do you want your future self to know about your present self? How might you represent that in an object, a letter, an artwork, or a creation? The nice thing about the capsule is that you can put more things in it than the bottle, right? You can fill it with things. How will you, if you wanted to include any technology, like Ovia was talking about, putting her address or possibly something in there that has some technology to it, consider the fact that you might not be able to view that in the future. Or maybe you can, right? Because we can still, we're pretty tech savvy, and 100 years from now, probably even more so. So we'll probably have a way to, get that information. But just think about it. Would you consider writing a letter to your future self that you share with no one else except for you or the person who opens your capsule? How would you decorate the outside and the inside of your capsule? And how can you represent your cultural heritage? So this is really important, okay? If you're talking about yourself and you're trying to share who you are as a person, your background and your ancestral heritage and your culture are a huge part of who you are. They are who you are, right? So you have to find a way to kind of share and represent that. And you guys are really good at that. We just did that in our textile project. So think about which objects you're going to include, and then where are you going to bury it? You know, like I for example, I'm a renter. I rent a house. I don't own a house. So I'm probably not going to bury it in my rental house because, you know, I might have to move in a couple years. So I'm going to go bury mine out where my mom lives. She's been there for 20 years. And, you know, and I know that if we ever sell that property, I can go dig it up. All right. So a key factor in this project is time. So I want you to think about that. Time. The time it takes for your bottle to get from you to somebody else, or the time between when you bury your capsule and when someone opens your capsule or you open your capsule. A lot of time capsules, there's written instructions on the capsule that tell you when to open it. Do not open until 2096 or 3010 or whatever. So think about that. So how does time factor into your artwork? How does time factor into your artwork? 4 things to consider for this project. Your message, your vehicle, your form, okay, what's your form going to look like, your bottle or your time capsule, and time. So history, communicating through time. So communicating with future civilizations through leaving things behind is not something that Americans created with the time capsule. This is ancient. Okay? Consider the fact that many archaeological finds and the reason why we even understand what occurred in the past civilizations is because people in them intentionally chose to bury or leave behind something of their culture. Okay? They're trying to share and say, hey, we were here. This is what life was like. Please don't forget about us. Okay, so that's what I want you guys to do. So here's some really great examples of that. Have you guys learned about the Chinese Terracotta Army from Mrs. Green yet?
Not yet. We're just learning about India.
India, yeah, I know. I sat for her class the other day and I learned about really interesting culture. So, but you will learn about this because I know she has a unit on it. So the Chinese Terracotta Army is a collection of terracotta, which is red clay sculptures depicting the armies of, and I'm not going to pronounce this name, I'm going to pronounce it through this app because I have to practice this.
Qin Shi Huang. Qin Shi Huang.
So we can practice this together. Should we all try to say it? Qin Shi Huang. Can you guys try? Qin Shi Huang. You can just try on your own with your mutes if you want. Okay, so this was the first emperor of China. Okay, the creation of this army included more than 8,000 life-size clay soldiers, 130 chariots, 520 horses, and 150 cavalry horses. Other official figures, acrobats, strongmen, and musicians. These were all created by his people to protect him in the afterlife. So he was buried with these soldiers and these basically a whole army and a village of people and chariots and horses. And they're all life-size and they're all created out of clay. And originally they discovered through studying these and doing experiments on them that they were actually painted at full color. So these are sort of recreations of that. So this is just a massive time capsule right here. This tells us so much about this Chinese culture. And also there's still mysteries around how did the people create these amazing sculptures in the time period, because he basically said, you have to create these figures before I die. And of course no one knew when that was going to be, so there's just a mass production of these figures. Had over 700,000 people working on these figures for him. So pretty amazing. This one is near and dear to my heart because I visited this spot before on a road trip. This is a seat mound, which is a kind of a large hill or an earthwork that is created as a burial of people and objects. So this is a burial ground with artifacts. So this Native American seat mound was built by the Hopewell people culture 100 BC to 500 AD and was excavated in outside of Chillicothe, Ohio between 1925 and 1928. The excavation uncovered artifacts that helped us understand that these people were really skilled at creating metal artifacts out of copper and mica. And this is what it looks like now, and this is kind of what the inside of the mound looks like. There's layers of dirt, and then inside there's these crypts with the people and artifacts. And I could go on about that because it was really fascinating to learn about it in person, but we have a lot to talk about today. So the history of the MIB, the message in the bottle. Traditionally, this is something that was used as a distress message. So someone's stranded on a desert island and they need help, so they send this message through the ocean. Or scientific studies of ocean currents. So the Navy used this technique a lot to study where the ocean was going. Memorials are sending ashes on final journeys, so a way to say goodbye to a loved one that's passed away. Messages from doomsdayers, so people that believe that the end of the world is coming soon, might send a message out to people. Pen pals, I'm not quite sure how this would work, but I did watch a video of a man who sent out over 4,000 bottles into the ocean, and he puts a flyer in the bottle. It's a plastic bottle, which is not good for the environment, but he's doing this. And inside the bottle is a flyer that has his address on it and just a message saying, please write me. And he's received 3,000 messages back. So 3,000 of those 4,000 messages that he sent out into the world ended up all over, on the other side of where he sent it, with messages back and telling their stories about their life. So this man's life's work is to do this. So that's what it means by pen pals. Love letters. Maybe there's a love message you want to send out into the world, like, where is my person? Come find me. And then, of course, there's the question of environmentalism, right? Is it environmentally sound to send plastic and glass out into the ocean? Of course not, right? So there's some people that are trying to develop biodegradable cards or wooden blocks. I'm a little confused by this, though, because how would that last if it's biodegradable? So that message would have to be found pretty quick before it biodegraded, right? So here's some historical facts, ideas about the MIB. And I know I've been talking for a while, and you guys are great listeners. Take a deep breath. Okay, just take a deep breath. This whole class is going to be sharing, and then I'm going to do my demo. Okay. All right. So some examples. 310 BC, Greek philosopher Theophrastus studying water currents to prove that the Mediterranean Sea was formed by the inflow of the Atlantic Ocean. This one's funny. 1580s, Queen Elizabeth appoints uncorker of ocean bottles because she believed that there were British spies sending them. So no one could open these bottles except for the uncorker, and if anyone did, they would be sent to death. Now, this is kind of a possible myth. We don't know if this is true. This one, I think, is kind of a sad and beautiful story. 1784, Chuno Osoke Matsuyama, a Japanese seaman on a voyage to find buried treasure, was stranded as a castaway on an island with his crew. As they died off from the starvation, he carved a message on a piece of wood and set it to sea inside a bottle. 151 years later, a seaweed collector found it and washed it ashore in the village that Matsuyama was born. That's the part that I think is really beautiful, because he was out to sea and he was stranded on an island, and that bottle washed up in his village. Isn't that just poetic? World's oldest message in a bottle was found on a beach in West Australia. It had been drifting for 132 years from a German ship dating back to 1886. And this was an experiment in ocean currents and shipping routes. This one put a tear in my eye. I've always been emotional about Titanic stories because it's just so tragic. So this one was discovered in 1913, and it said, "From Titanic, goodbye all, Burke of Glanmere, Cork," where it washed ashore, and here's another thing that'll give you chills, just miles outside of his family home. Just like the Japanese seamen. Isn't that amazing? So, but the Titanic is just a sad story. Just imagining all those people sinking and writing their final messages to their loved ones. So your bottle will be made out of clay, but the form can be anything you want it to be. Remember, form is an element of art, and it means it's a three-dimensional object, height, width, and depth. So it can be anything. Here's some examples of some bottles. This one is actually a message in a bottle form. This one is just a plastic bob that floats on the ocean with a little tail, and the message is inside that little bob. Glass. The first glass bottles were produced around 1000 BC in Southeast Asia. So form has meaning. Consider that the form you choose can also have a meaning and send a message. So let's in the chat for a second. What do you think that means? Form has meaning. Look at these examples. What do you think form has meaning means?
Maybe like some people like choose the form from like fish, or if they're like fishermen or something, they made it out of fish, or if like that's part of their culture, they like do that. Because the one with the white and blue in the middle, like right in the middle after the big blue bottle, that looks like Chinese thing.
This red one?
No, the next to it, the blue one.
This one?
No, the white and the blue.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's actually Italian, and it's an olive oil bottle, which is, of course, olive oil is very integral to Italian cuisine. So Gabby says the form could be cultural. Jocelyn says the form could represent something. Alexandria says so many people were willing to. Oh, are you talking about Titanic? Yeah. I'm just looking at your past comments. Okay, so any other ideas around why form might have meaning? I'm going to call on someone that hasn't shared here. Paolo, why do you think form has meaning? The form of that bottle has some meaning. What do I mean by that?
Can I put it in the chat?
Sure. Think about it for a second. Put it in the chat. And then how about Chanel? What do you think I mean by form has meaning?
Maybe it can like represent something in a way that can like talk about its time like right now.
Okay, so the form can have some message that talks about our current life. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so form has meaning. So what are some of these objects here that you see? Anything that you see or notice? That you know what it is or what it's for? The fish bottle. Maybe what does the fish bottle contain, do you think? Maybe fish oil? So Paolo says it can tell us what that bottle contained. Exactly. So we could be conceptual about this, or we could be real literal and just say, well, this is a baby bottle and it contains milk. Guess what? These forms here are also baby bottles. These are ancient baby bottles, these little animals. The mouth is the nipple. Isn't that sweet? And then, of course, perfume bottles. This is a Peruvian bottle. This is just a basic water bottle that we're all, using these days. So lots of different forms and bottles throughout history here. So let's talk a little bit about the time capsule, okay? So some history around the time capsule. So there's over 10 to 15,000 recorded time capsules around the world. I've shared a link with you that actually lists some of them in different countries. So a time capsule is basically a cache or a pile of objects and information designed to communicate with future people. So it's really meant to educate future people and yourself if you find it in the future, including archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians. Sometimes it's buried in a cornerstone of a new important building. So as the building is being constructed, a time capsule will be created and actually embedded in the wall of a corner of that important building. And I'll show you an example of that soon. World's fairs. That's a big thing to talk about. I'll go into that maybe in one of our Hello activities in the future, what a World's Fair is. Family history. You could tell your family's history in this time capsule. And there's some sad ones too. There's some time capsules that were found from Auschwitz, right? In concentration camps where the Jewish people were held against their will and sort of starved and left to die and killed. So a lot of people were desperate to tell their stories and get their message out there. And then pandemics, hint, hint, right? And historically significant political moments, hint, hint, if you wanted to tell those stories. So here's some examples. In 1777, a time capsule discovered in a religious statue of Jesus Christ in Burgos, Spain, contained a document with economic and political and cultural information written by Joaquin Minguez, the chaplain of the cathedral. It was discovered in 2017. In 1876, the Century Safe was America's oldest planned time capsule. The iron safe contained a gold pen, inkstand, a book on temperance, a collection of American signatures, pictures of President Ulysses S. Grant and other politicians taken by Matthew Brady, who was a very famous war photographer at the time. The oldest known time capsule in America was created by Paul Revere and Samuel Adams, hidden in a cornerstone, we talked about this, of a building constructed in 1795. It contained newspapers, coins dating back from the 1600s, and a silver plaque that read, "This cornerstone of a building intended for the use of the legislative and executive branches of the government of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts was laid by His Excellency Samuel Adams, Esquire, and Governor of the said Commonwealth." I like all of those titles. Excellency, Esquire, Governor. So that's pretty neat. This one is called The Crypt of Civilization. It was created by a professor. He was the president of Oglethorpe University to preserve all of human knowledge for posterity. I think that's really presumptuous of him, but still kind of funny. In 1937, he converted an underground chamber on campus containing 640,000 pages of microfilmed books, text, television, toys, etc. It was welded shut with instructions not to open it until the year 8113 AD. It still remains closed today. So we're in 2021, guys, right? So, I mean, is this going to even be around in 8113? And what a random year to choose, too, right? But kind of neat. So this begs the question, if you're trying to teach future civilizations about history, who chooses what goes in that vault? Because that's a pretty important job, right? So this professor or the president decided what went in this vault, and he decided what was important to share. So that's a good question to ask. You can watch this on your own because we're running out of time, but this is created by an MIT professor. MIT is Massachusetts Institute of Technology. This one is really interesting. In 1972, the Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi buried a time capsule outside of the gate of Red Fort Complex, scheduled to be open in 1,000 years. And this was very controversial because the contents were not made public. So the question is, should a leader be allowed to create such a historical document without disclosing its contents, right? And then 1977, the Janata Party came to power and dug up the time capsules, so she made more than one, removing their contents and replacing them with more historical accounts of India's history for posterity. This one's real cool if you're into space. The Rosetta spacecraft carried a micro-etched nickel prototype of the Rosetta disk. It was launched into space on March 2nd, 2004, and in 2014 it reached its comet and in 2016 landed on the comet, now orbiting the sun. So the disk contains 160,000 pages of information on this one little disk. And the neat thing about it is that you don't need future technology to look at it. You just need a microscope. So future aliens can learn about life on the planet Earth. So we looked at the MOM project already. You can dig into that a little bit more if you want. So form, your time capsule will be made out of clay, but the form can be anything you want it to be. So here's some different examples of time capsules. Concrete. Typically, they shape like a bullet. And they're shaped like a bullet mostly because they're buried vertically in the dirt. And a lot of them, on the very top of the bullet is a plaque, and that plaque sits above the earth, so it looks kind of like a tombstone. It's written on there, "This is a time capsule created by so and so. Do not open until 8113 AD." So, but this one from MIT was created. This glass was blown, and it's like double paned, and and pressurized. There's absolutely no way that any moisture is going to get into that capsule because it was created by MIT professors, very smart people. Okay, so this one I just thought was cute. It was created by a school, Discovery Park, in 1996, and it says open May 2nd, 1996, but it's all made out of plastic, so it doesn't look very durable, does it? So question, what will be in your 2020 time capsule? What tells the story of this year? Here's an interesting article if you want to read it. And here's some examples of some really beautiful ceramic forms throughout history. Here's some ancient Greek amphoras, which were wine bottles. Here's a Peruvian fox warrior bottle from the Moche culture, 4th to 6th century. You can include, sculptural elements. You might not want to include really delicate things like handles and stuff, though. So this is going to have to be a sturdy capsule. This one is a Korean boncheong bottle, which is a very traditional form for this type of bottle, kind of like a pillow shape. This is a contemporary Celadon glaze bottle. You can paint a scene on the front of your bottle or your capsule. You can decorate it. A lot of our glazes are made of the same materials that our clay body is. They withstand time and history. Some other beautiful clay forms. Sarah Jaeger, this is like a casserole dish, but it could be a bottle, it could be a time capsule. Mark Hewitt pottery, this one's kind of a neat shape. And some fun contemporary ceramic jars with lids. So your time capsule, I'm going to teach you how to make a lid on your time capsule. And just FYI, they're not going to be huge, right? Because you guys might not have worked with clay yet. So we have to keep the technique simple and make some pretty simple forms, but they're still going to be really beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to jump. I don't have too much more time left, so I'm going to actually jump into what you guys are going to do for your research and your drawing, and then I'm going to show you a demonstration, and then I'm going to set you free to work. So I'm going to be choosing this as a reference, right? So I'm going to teach you guys how to build up something with the coil technique. So you can make it geometric if you want to, but I would try to maybe stick to something that is kind of organic shaped. I think it would be easier technically for you guys. So, and I love this like latch. I think I might, as a decorative element, just add something on there that's kind of latched. And I'm choosing to research the Indian culture. You guys know this already because my son's Indian, and you know, as a new mom, as a new parent, pretty much the first couple of years, everything is about your kid. So I would love for him to dig this capsule up, or in the future, maybe he finds this capsule, or maybe his kids find this capsule, and he sees himself in it. So that's why I'm researching Indian vessels. Okay. And there's some references here. If you guys want to dig and do more research, all the references for this lecture are written right here. All right, so we're going to look at what you guys are going to do today. And I'm going to jump right into my demo. And during my demo, you guys can ask me questions. Okay, so your assignment's right here. These questions at the top are the exact same ones I wanted you to ponder in the lecture. They're just written out again. You do not need to answer them physically yourself. So you can scroll all the way down to this part that says research. Your bottle or capsule form, decoration, and content should relate to you and your message to the receiver or your future self. Consider and try your best to include decorations or content that are from your culture, your cultural heritage. This is a huge part of who you are, right? So you want to include this. Research either a message in a bottle or time capsule. So this is where you need to decide which one you're going to do. Consider digging into your culture and place of country or origin, even your ancestral origins, to find examples. So this link will take you to a list of time capsules all over the world. So you can maybe go and try to see if that your origin, right, has some examples of some interesting time capsules. You can make your own document. Actually, don't do that. I'm going to change that. You're going to post this in the discussion board instead, because I prefer to see your answers that way. So find 2 cultural or current culture references that include in your design on your vessel. And you're going to put them here or post them in the discussion board. And then find 2 examples of bottles or capsules that inspire you. Post those in the discussion board. And then you're going to do a full color drawing of your bottle or your capsule. Consider the building technique I'm going to teach you, right, in designing your capsule. Remember, I said probably going to be doing somewhat organic form, possibly with some angles, but not super geometric. Okay. I'd like you to draw something that has a lid, and I want to see what that box looks like with the lid off. If you're doing a bottle, you could talk about maybe how are you going to seal the bottle and how are people going to get into your bottle or read the message. All right, so I'm going to switch gears here and turn this off, and then we're going to do a demo on the drawing. I think I have to turn my virtual background off before I switch camera modes.